just saying we want to look at those ballots because it doesn't make any sense. We pulled out one yes vote. We knew we had 50 and 50. We pulled out one yes vote, and we end up with one less no vote.
You mean they're not letting you look at the ballots?
They won't let us look at the ballots.
Good morning. And a special good morning to all you people who never watch the show.
Huh.
The ones that say they never watch. We know you're out there. Don't we, George?
Yeah.
George Myers
We've been
knows.
waiting for you to come around and watch.
Yeah. Jim Spodek knows, don't you, Jim?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm Dr. Jorgen. And we're going to talk about Foxconn today. This is a subject that we have been letting sit on the back burner for a while now because there are other things going on. And we're going to revisit it because, well, this is kind of we're getting close to a milestone here. There's supposed to have been, roughly $1 billion spent by now.
Well, there was
by
talk about
by the end of this year.
The people that came out said we need to address it, and the naysayers. Naysayers were out there. And,
well, you and I were the optimists. We figured there was a 25% chance of this thing working out right.
Yeah.
Jim was the only naysayer. He says, this ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, well.
And we really hoped that for the sake of the taxpayers and for the area, and it'd be nice to be the technological center of the Midwest and all that type of good stuff.
We really would.
Yeah, it'd be great if it works out. We're not objecting to it.
No,
we just thought it was very risky for the people of Mount Pleasant. And, as things developed, the 25% was starting to look awful good.
Really, I think part of it was when we talked about it early on, and that was in July, and I remember the episode, it was July of 2017, and when it was just first announced, and I think we called it the Lemonade episode because Scott Walker said, if anybody's out there that doesn't agree with this, they can suck lemons. Well, that was our Lemonade episode. But I think the real objection was the amount, 13,000 jobs, $53,000 a year in wages. It was just so out there so far.
Rosy predictions.
Very rosy.
Yeah.
And when you get something like that, and then politicians are all out there, and I think, George, you brought it, one businessman and a...
Yeah, there was a stage full of people out there. I think there was seven, eight people there, and they were all politicians except one. The president was out there, the governor was out there. There were
vice president was there, the representative first district
county
was there.
board, all kinds of.
They couldn't fall over each other fast enough.
And we said, wait a second, is this a business deal or a political deal?
Well, I thought one of the greatest quotes was from Scott Walker. If you want to play in the big leagues, you got to offer big incentives, and when somebody's offering big incentives, and the incentives are based on yours and my tax dollars. Yep. It gives you a little bit of a creepy feeling.
What could have gone wrong? You got to.
What did go wrong?
Well, where do you want to start?
Have they hit any of their benchmarks?
Well, one of the things I remember when it originally came out, Foxconn was coming out. Weren't they going to? They were talking about 5,000 employees, and Scott Walker said
5,200. Yeah,
5,200. Scott Walker said, "Well, we're looking for more like 10,000."
Yeah.
So he said, "Oh, okay. You want 10,000? We'll do 10,000."
Yeah.
It's like
where's a napkin?
It's like whatever you want me to say, I'll say it. But it's like, but is it really a good business deal?
Well, how about the jobs that were anticipated? How close are we to getting there?
We're not anywhere near close to that. Now,
do we have any employees?
There's, again, it's the numbers. How do the numbers work? Way down. We're actually at May of 2020. We were the 10G plant or whatever the biggest plant was supposed to be up and running, and that would have had probably 2,500 employees. I don't know what their employee count is now, but it's certainly a lot less than that. They changed it now to a Gen 6 plant, and that didn't materialize. And then, of course, there were 26 or 2,900 acres. They're in 800 of those acres. They haven't moved on to contract or take on the other phase 2. Way behind the numbers.
One of the key measurements, too, is amount of investment. Now, do we know how much construction is out there? Have we heard anything about that? But how much in buildings, actual manufacturing plants, do we...
At this point?
Yeah, at this point right now. Somewhere around 500 million?
Yeah,
a little over 500. I think 520.
What they're saying is it's assessed at 522.
522 million. Because that's the key. I'm looking at the chart of the projection of what they needed to do in order to be successful. And in the first year, they had to put up $347 million worth of buildings. That's in 2018. In the second year, they had to put up another $347 million. That's the end of 2019. And that total is more like $694 million. Now, that's at the end of 2019. Here we are closing in on 2020, and we're still at $500 million.
Right.
At the end of 2020, we should be up over $1 billion. Now, so we're about halfway where they wanted to be. Now, we did that chart, and we might want to look at that chart real quickly. We have a bottom line here, which represents about 30 years of time. All right, starting with 2018 and going out to 2048, 2050. And up this line is the amount of money spent. It also represents the amount of money received. So it counts two things: amount of money spent by the municipality and the amount of money received. Now, in addition to that, however, is this $764 million that's going to be spent during 2018. Now, we've kind of roughed it out as how we think it's going to get spent. It's going to get spent, but it's not all going to get spent in the first year. It's going to get spent in multiple years. Is that there's going to be $31 million come in the form of money from the district. Now, I don't want to get
from the TID, right?
From the TID,
tax, yeah.
from the tax incremental district.
That's
in other words,
taxes paid.
That's the taxes that they would have paid, that the Foxconn would have paid, but because it's a tax incremental district, it goes back into the project here, which means at least though it's a recovery of some of that money that's been spent.
So instead of being taxes, it's actually used to pay down the debt.
Right, exactly.
Right.
That's what I mean by going back into the TID. Now, we've done this for each year. Each one of these represented an increase of $31 million total that's been invested for the next 30 years, actually 32 years. And then so that's what this blue line is. That's just $31 million a year. We're not sure how much it's going to be, but that's what the anticipation is, and that shows how much money comes in to pay for this money that's being spent. Now, as you can see, in the third year, we're going to have to do something in water and wastewater. That's 160 million of that. Then the next year is 116 million for public safety and police upgrades. I guess they're concerned about all this activity. They're going to need extra police in there. And the next year after that, there's is $28 million for contingency. This is just in case we need to spend money, and that finishes out the first 5 years, which gets you up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Now, why is it going up a little bit even after that? That's because there's interest on the bonds, and each one of these years, once you start borrowing money, your interest rate is going to go up.
So we've got this calculated at what?
2.5%.
2.5%, which is it's pretty average for a bond. That's
pretty darn good. That's AAA bond rating, and if they can keep their AAA rating going into all this debt, that'll be a very, very good trick as far as I know. That's another thing that could really change this curve. If it gets up to 3 or 4 or 5%, then it's going to go a lot higher. Now, at the end of 30 years, that's where the paths finally cross. So it's a 30-year point where this TID district actually, the money coming in actually pays for all the debt that the city has incurred. In the meantime, though, here is the amount of debt that is incurred. And this is the difference between this red dot up here and this blue dot down here. And 5 years from now, it shows a debt of about $620 million.
That's how much is still owed by Mount Pleasant.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's the risk that Mount Pleasant faces. As long as everything continues along, we go out to 10 years and it's down to $539 million. So as the years go on, the debt decreases. But at this year here, let's say $539 million, now we say, well, I mean, suppose Foxconn runs out of steam, or customers go bad, or
some more technology comes along and they're not using flat screens anymore, so the factory's obsolete. That's right. A possibility.
Yeah, the way technology goes these days, we don't even know how long these liquid display screens are going to be actually being used. So let's just take an example here. If something like that occurs, now what happens? Where is this municipality sitting? But that chart was based on this investment and the amount coming in each year of $31 million. And then you saw that line that we would meet the expenses it would be about 30 years out.
About 2040.
Yeah, now if we're only going to be halfway there, right now we're only halfway, and
well, that's not halfway to the total. That's just halfway to this first.
Halfway where we're only halfway where
yeah.
right now we're only halfway where we were supposed to be at this point. That chart that black line going up there is going to flatten out now. It's going to go stretch way out there, and instead of being in 30 years, it could go out 40, 50 years. And when you get out in that type of length of time, by the time you're reaching that, these buildings you put up 50 years ago,
yeah,
are having to be demolished or remodeled, and they're out suddenly.
But here's
obsolete.
the argument that Mount Pleasant's putting out. And officials are saying, "Hey, we have an ironclad contract that they're going to pay $31 million a year, no matter if it's $1 billion worth of investment or a $10 billion worth of investment. They're going to pay us $31 million a year."
And that's fine. That's fine if you're dealing with Foxconn, because Foxconn is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, billions and billions. But unfortunately, that's not who you're dealing with.
you're dealing with SIO Holdings.
SIO Holdings out of the Bahamas, see, and
Caymans. Even worse.
The
Cayman Islands.
Cayman, okay. Yeah, so you're dealing with a small corporation. In fact, young people going into business are often advised, make it a corporation. So in case you screw up and something happens to you, your corporation gets sued and you still have your house and car and you have your belongings. Mm-hmm. All right? Well, that's what this was done. So we can't go after Foxconn. We're going after this little corporation in the Cayman Islands.
Well, it's a holding company, yeah. So
right. Now, the difference between that practice that the young man or young woman does and what's going on with this Mount Pleasant Foxconn thing is that those people that are going to invest or deal with this corporation have got an option of whether or not they want to do it. They can investigate the corporation, make sure, okay, we realize you've got a corporation there protecting your assets, and yeah, it looks like you got a good idea, we'll go with it, or a little dicey there, we're not going to go with it. With Foxconn, the taxpayers or the people that are investing in it didn't have much to say about it. You're going to pay for it whether you like it or not. Exactly. So it's a practice that works fine when it's in the private sector, but when you put it into something like this, it's getting a little bit risky.
Well, we all realize that when you have a projection like this on a huge project like this, that there probably is going to be some variation during the course of this thing developing. So
50% of where you're supposed to be?
Yeah, well, and plus there are other
$31 million a year we're supposed to be bringing in?
There's other things that have been promised, like these innovation centers.
Right.
They're not there.
No. Okay.
They're not there. They have not come through on that. The number of employees, of course, we just mentioned, way down from what it was supposed to be. So nothing is hitting the benchmarks that they were projecting it was going to do. So that means that the money that all of us are on the hook for, we're still on the hook for. And the money that's supposed to be coming in to cover the cost that we've invested, that's uncertain. It's become more uncertain in the last few years.
Right. I mean, when and I read this article that was just recently put out there, and they talked about it's hitting numbers, and we're feeling good about where it's going. It's mind-boggling to read that article and then to look at the real numbers and say you're not even close. I mean, this has been, as far as I'm concerned, at any time Foxconn could take a hike on this, on the money part of it. What's going to happen here? I don't think you're going to see Foxconn do this. We're going to have to. I mean, there's going to have to be a change up here. To me, it's a big...
I agree with you. I think it's going to be a big industrial park that gets built.
Big, empty industrial park.
It's not going to be what it was built for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well,
I think the hoopla was way overplayed.
For this chart to come true that they had presented, that we had talked about, they've got to get up to that $1.4 billion investment. that produces the tax increment that they need to meet that investment that the community has put into it. And right now, they're sitting, instead of $31 million, it's less $31 million. It's less than $15 million that they have invested right now. It's closer to 14 or 13. So they're way off the mark there, and I'm just a little surprised that some of these leaders are,
So optimistic?
yeah, or yeah, whatever you want to call it. It's time to quit paying politics with it, and let's
you got some
sit
serious
down to
money out here.
Business, yeah.
Here's the other thing: the bond. They went out and bonded that. It's not that they came into somebody's, the community and said, "Oh, we need all this money. You got to raise a tax." They went out and bonded it, so people are out there buying these bonds. But those bonds, if you remember back at 2018, whatever, the bonding company lowered the projections on those, or the ratings. So that was dropped. What if you run into some real problems? And I can remember in an article, and one of the investment bankers said the bond holders or the paper holders have to be very concerned about Foxconn and watch Foxconn. So if you make an investment and you're in a, let's just say you invest in IBM, do you watch IBM as closely? I don't hear bond or stock brokers saying, "We got to watch IBM." No, you say, "Hey, it's a good company. It's been moving forward. It's got a good track record." But these bondholders are been told they got to keep an eye on Foxconn, so they're cautious. So when the finance markets are cautious, it certainly should be the taxpayers should be cautious.
Well, we had talked about that too in negotiating with the Chinese. We had discussed that. Not at length, but we discussed it, and said that when you're dealing with the Chinese, you're dealing with a different set of rules. When they sign a contract, it's more like a plan. It's not a contract. It's saying, here's what our goals are, and they might change. And so you sign it as an American thinking you're signing a contract, where on the other side they're thinking in terms of it's just a projection. And the other thing is that, and now this is one of the things we discussed, and the other thing that was discussed is that in the United States, we are under the working conditions, or the belief, so to speak, that both sides can win. And the Chinese seem to feel that one side wins and the other side loses in a contract.
On that note,
that's their philosophy.
On that note, let's just take a break here for a minute. I'm exhausted just thinking about this. We're going to take just a moment now and allow George to discuss an arithmetic problem. George?
I want to explain a little bit more about what this appeal is that we're making on this Racine Unified School District referendum. We're going to be meeting with the lawyers later in the day, and we're going to have to decide how we're going to proceed with this appeal. But basically, here's what we're doing. Let's suppose I got 2 stacks of ballots here. These are yes votes and these are no votes, and they're 50 in each stack. Now these stacks have been totally confirmed. At the time of the balloting, the machines came out 50-50. Then when they brought them over here for the appeal, they checked the voting ballots, the voting rolls, found out, there were 100 people voted, and they went through and put the ballots in 2 stacks, and they counted them again, and it was 50 and 50. And by the way, of the 33,491 votes that were cast in that election, the machine was right every single time. There was not a single mistake. So we know we've got 50 no votes here and 50 yes votes here. Then something came up. When they were looking at the absentee ballots, they found out one of them was wrong.
Oh, I bet it was the envelope.
It was the envelope, right.
Yeah.
They looked at the envelope and said, the voter forgot to sign it, or the witness forgot to sign it, or the witness
and
didn't
of
put his
course, there's
address
no
out.
way of knowing which ballot was attached to that envelope, so then you got to,
We have to get rid of one of these. There's 100 ballots here, 50 yes and 50 no, and we have to get rid of one of them. So what they do is they take these 50 ballots and they divide it into 2 new stacks. This time, one stack has got all the walk-in ballots, and the other stack has got all the write-in ballots, the absentee ballots. Because we're not going to touch the walk-in ballots. We're going to leave those alone. and we're going to have to take one out of these absentee ballots because there's a ballot that doesn't belong in there.
Makes perfect sense.
All right. Now, we don't know how many in these numbers. That doesn't make any difference at this point. It's only that these are the walk-in and these are the absentee ballots. So they come over there, and they blind and they pull a ballot out, and it's a yes vote.
Still pretty simple.
Yeah. So one less yes vote. So we know now if we go back to those two stacks, there's only going to be 49 yes votes, and there's going to be 50 no votes, right? Because we pulled out one yes vote.
Yeah.
But can't do it that way. No arithmetic allowed.
Wait a minute. This is an educational system, and they're going to disallow arithmetic?
You cannot use that.
Okay.
We have to go back and we have to count them. That's what the rules say. So they take the one ballot out, and then they take the rest of the ballots, the 99, and they put them back into those two stacks. Funniest thing, though, when they count those ballots, there's still 50 yes votes and only 49 no votes. And we're saying, wait a second, how can that be? You take one.
That sounds completely backwards of what just happened.
Yeah, you take one of the yes votes out. It's got to be one less yes vote. They said, no, that's not the way it works. That doesn't make it. You can't just use simple arithmetic. You have to count the ballots.
Well, did you look at the ballots?
Well, that's what the appeal is all about. We're just saying we want to look at those ballots because it doesn't make any sense. We pulled out one yes vote. We knew we had 50 and 50. We pulled out one yes vote, and we end up with one less no vote.
You mean they're not letting you look at the ballots?
They won't let us look at the ballots. Now, their excuse is we're not going to do a recount of the recount. And we're saying we're not asking for that. All we want is to look at the 10. There are only 10 election centers, election places that this occurred in.
There's like 50 election sites.
Yeah,
right?
there are 51 election sites. We only want to look at 10 of them. And they're saying, and by the way, of those 10, there was a total of 19 discrepancies, like the one I told you. So in other words, by our count, we didn't lose that by 5 votes. We won it by 14 votes. We want to look at the...
That's why they don't want you to look at the ballots.
That's why I didn't want to look at the ballot. And that's what the appeal's all about. We want to look at the ballots.
I thought maybe that it was like really a mathematical problem, and I was wondering, if these people are doing this kind of math, do we really want them teaching our children? But it's not. They just don't want you to see the ballots.
They don't want to see the ballots.
So they would rather spend money on a big lawsuit. They'd rather have the citizens spend money, and they would rather hire attorneys to go and argue this in court. Rather than look at the ballots?
They seem to like that because all we have to look at the ballot, and guess what? Then there's no appeal.
Well, yeah. Why don't they? This could all be over.
It could be all over. Just have to look at the ballots.
Well, thanks for sharing that, George.
Okay, my pleasure.
What do you think of that, folks? Okay, I'm well rested. How about you guys?
Good. You feel better?
Yeah. Oh, now you wanted to continue on about
It's not as mean as it might sound when it says one side wins and the other side loses, because we face it every day in sports. When the Bears are playing the Packers, one side wins and the other side loses. Okay, that's the way the game's played. You go out, and whoever loses, you come back and you play again the next day.
Right.
Just when it comes to business, we feel that both sides should win, where the Chinese apparently take the philosophy more than, no, one side wins and the other side loses. If you lose, okay, come on back and try again tomorrow.
Well, which side?
I'm just guessing.
Which side do they want? Which side do they want?
They want to win. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, Mount Pleasant. That's what they want to do to you.
So far, it's working out pretty good for them. It looks like.
If you look at it that way, who's got the hook and who? I mean, you've already spent the money.
Well, if you don't know you're playing that kind of game,
right?
That's where they get the hook.
Who doesn't know that, George? You got international negotiators all over the world from Foxconn. You come to Mount Pleasant, and these guys are going to negotiate with world. International investors.
Well, Jim, that's where we got our data from, those international traders. Well, that's where we didn't figure that out.
Right.
We were reading the article that said, this is the way they work,
so
folks.
You're going to go, and I think we said, hey, get off the tractor, Joe, while those international guys from Foxconn are here.
We've got very sophisticated folks here, Jim, that are right on top of this situation. I wouldn't be too concerned.
But here's where I'm going. Who's got the hook
in?
The money's spent.
Yeah.
The development's done. Yeah, great. We got some contractors working. We made some of these people locally made money and stuff. That's great. But the fact is, you still got a huge bill, and the taxpayers are on the hook for it. And you got a company that has not lived up to its to the contract.
I'm concerned this could be one of those situations where you borrow your father's car, you rent a tuxedo, you show up at your girlfriend's house to go to the prom, and you find, and her mother says, "Oh, she went with Joe."
Yeah, exactly right. So I mean, it's not a cautious. That's a word that really should be used here. Everything is up in the air here.
Yep.
Yeah, we're talking 30, 40 years. We're talking about $31 million a year coming out of Foxconn.
Yeah, it was going to be 30 years, and now, it's creeping up with the...
Yeah, who knows?
If things hold at this current rate, like George said, by the time this thing gets anywhere near being paid off, those buildings will be crumbling.
What if
and they aren't even built yet.
All right, let's look at the other scenario. What if they said, we're out of here. We're going to dump our $500 million and leave it here, and we're out of here. See ya.
Yeah.
We're going over to Vietnam and set up a factory, and we're just going to dump this because it's not going anywhere. We got all these other issues around town or around the world.
Could we get Amazon in here?
Yeah, I mean, where do we go from there?
Yeah.
Well, here's another way to look at it, guys. We just saw our little advertisement about the Racine Unified Referendum. Now that's $50 million a year that we're gonna be paying. Now, this is only $31 million.
But here's what
Mount Pleasant could do it. They got money.
It's like Sturtevant is the.
But here's where I'm saying,
they're loaded.
Yeah. It's just, again, you have when you put government and business, government should just operate the roads.
Yeah.
Get out of business, because this one here, if you'd have said that this is what it's going to be here in 2020 or 21, back in 2017, would you have done this deal?
See, one of the things that's going on the Foxconn site is there's a lot of corn growing.
Yeah, right.
Now, who's growing that corn?
Local farmers have been asked to go out there and plant corn, and they'll get a little I don't know if they're paying for it, but those acres that used to house people's homes are now
corn.
Is corn.
Yeah.
Maybe soybeans.
That's good.
I don't know. But I mean, the fact is, this huge project that was going to be game changing has not done that, and it's not COVID, because I saw that in the article too. This world's different because of COVID. Not this world. This world was poor. This was done poorly from the beginning.
If anything, with COVID, people are watching more television.
Yeah, well,
this was supposed to be a television manufacturer.
Well, remember,
COVID should have been a boom.
This was 11 Lambeau Fields. Remember that?
Yeah.
This was going to be 11 Lambeau Fields.
How many we got out there?
I don't know. We got one.
One?
One. Maybe.
There's probably at least a few stadiums worth of land out there.
And there was,
no, wait a moment. Okay, it's the land, because I said $500 million doesn't.
No, but this was going to be their development. It was going to be 11
anymore.
Lambeau Fields. They're going to be full of development. There was going to be multi-use housing, and oh my gosh, there was all kinds of things.
About police after
security,
police
and oh my gosh, they had all kinds of things.
Well, they do have security if you ever drive through there. There's usually somebody following you.
But then there was another set. We've been written up all over the world. Well, yeah, you were not all that favorably, though.
Oh yeah, that was one of the things. All of the attention that we've gathered worldwide for this grand development, and our question was, is it good news?
Was it good?
I think politicians think along those terms. They're just circling that, like these big cities that want to have a professional sports team in there. They sell it to their constituents, saying, "Well, we're going to make money off of it." Well, Reason Magazine did a study of all those cities, and not a single one was making any money.
Yeah.
What the politicians like is it puts their name up in lights. The Cincinnati, whatever, the Chicago, whatever. Doc, you had mentioned Green Bay might be one.
The only community-owned franchise.
Because the community owns the franchise,
Right.
But other than that, it costs us money. Just like we had to chip in for the Brewers Stadium there for all those years. It costs the local taxpayers, and overall it doesn't benefit it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we heard just a little while ago, like a couple of months ago, that tax was going to expire, and haven't heard anything since, because there was an effort or a movement. People wanted to renew that tax.
There was some talk about it, but I heard from the politicians saying it wasn't going to be renewed. So we'll find out if our.
But will it be replaced? Maybe they'll.
Well, that's
Don't need that either.
Boy.
So hopefully this will be end of it, and the Brewers can make it on their own. Those guys, $1 million, those millionaires playing a kid's game can just pay for it on their own. They should not come to the taxpayers to support their trips around the bases.
Well, anyway, that's the update on Foxconn. We hope you enjoyed that. We're going to be discussing, let's see, the Widener lawsuit is coming up this week.
That's coming up.
Isn't there
yep, that's
something dramatic happening this week?
There's a hearing this week on that. Would be the sealed emails. The city said we're, attorney-client privilege, so we're going to see about those.
Mm-hmm.
That's on Wednesday this week.
And that's down in Kenosha now.
Correct.
Right.
That was moved to Kenosha. And then there's I'd like to touch on the lawsuits that are being filed on the city of Racine from the employees that are on their health benefits.
Right.
And they're asking, of course, the city's now saying, hey, taxpayers, can you help us out? So I'd like to do a little
well, we blew the budget once again, and now we have to come to you guys and ask for some money. But if we don't get any money, these poor retirees' health care plans are going to go down the toilet. You don't want these poor retirees to suffer.
Even though there is a full-fledged contract.
It's total mismanagement.
Oh, total, absolute mismanagement.
And of course, we're going to keep the whole mayor's staff there. We got to keep all them.
He still needs 5 people down in that office where the mayor used to have 1. Now there's 5.
Yeah.
We can't cut back on that, but we can cut back on retirees' health benefits.
Right.
It's amazing.
So that's another argument we're
And
going to
also we got the Unified School District appeal coming up.
Correct.
So let's find out what that.
So
goes
we got a lot
in.
of stuff on the
we need to keep raising funds for that too.
Yep. So if you can, go to Hot Government, drop a few dollars in for that appeal for the Unified. That's $1 billion. It's costing the Hot Government people a lot of money for that appeal. Of course, your tax dollars are fighting that through Unified to just get the chance to take a look at those ballots. Here's the thing: Unified should just say, we counted them correctly. We won fair and square. Let us.
Yeah, here's the ballots.
Go take a look.
Go check it
knock
out.
yourself out. Here's my thing. What are you hiding, Unified? What are you really hiding?
So with that, we're going to take off, and we hope to see you next week, especially you people that never watched the show. Come on back. Okay, take it easy. Thanks for being here.